So the reason, and psychoanalysts will back this up. Psychoanalysts talk about this a lot, that when people come into analysis nowadays, they don't sit there and talk about all the guilt they have for all of the obscene forms of enjoyment they gave themselves over to. What they feel guilty about is not having enjoyed enough. I'm not living my best life. I'm not being the self that I want to be. Like they constantly feel like they are compromising their enjoyment, giving ground relative to their enjoyment, instead of living it in an uncompromised way.
It's like when Kat in Euphoria is having that be yourself moment.
You have to love yourself. You need to find your inner fucking warrior. Become a bad bitch, just like you did last year.
But that wasn't even real.
It looked real.
That was the point.
I found it inspiring.
Shut the fuck up!
Love yourself! Love yourself! Love yourself! Love yourself! Love yourself! Love yourself! You love yourself! You love yourself!
Love yourself.
Enjoy yourself is another way we could do it. You're right. Like that agency of this, like this obscene moral pressure to enjoy or be your best self or be your true self or not compromise. That's the superego, because the whole point is the more you try to enjoy, the less you can enjoy, because to command enjoyment is to neutralize it. And yet that's still the command. And so the trick is, like, the superego is sadistic. Like, it's constantly trying to make you unable to enjoy by commanding enjoyment, and then it makes you feel guilty about it. Right? So, like, the superego is not this locus of moral conscience. It's this locus of obscene conscience, like, you pathetic little shit. You look at you. I tell you to enjoy. You can't fucking get that right, can you? You fucking motherfucker. And the point is, you feel like this agency, like, it's weird. It's a virtual thing. It's not an actual person, but it enjoys your inability to enjoy. It enjoys making you feel guilty for not enjoying. And so people feel like they have to pursue shit precisely out of this weird moral duty to enjoy.
Are you giving it agency? How, like, is this just a kind of a metaphor or what?
Well, it's kind of an agency in the way that the Big Other or the Dossmon's an agency.
So, but people say doing its work, going around telling you, oh yeah, those people that just want you to repress yourself, you need to just let it out. You need to be yourself. You need to find yourself. You need to do whatever you need to do. You, boo. You're saying that person, you're not saying that person is getting enjoyment from making you feel insufficient.
Sometimes, yeah. I think sometimes the person who's trying to coach you into, because the whole point is, and this is ŽIŽEK's point, what we need is a kind of social agency that says, enjoy or don't enjoy. It's up to you. Like, Big Other says, do not enjoy, thou shalt not enjoy. It's like the figure of God, or, you have to constantly violate what you want to enjoy for the sake of social duty. On the other hand, you have the superego constantly going, enjoy, you motherfucker, always enjoy. Well, then enjoyment becomes a fucking duty and a burden. You can't enjoy all the fucking time. It's not possible. Our libidinal economies don't work that way. In fact, like, the whole point of having enjoyment is that there's a vacillation between enjoyment and pleasure. Like, you can't be in enjoyment all the time. You go nuts. So, but the point of this is that it's what drives you to transgress the law. It's what drives you to engage in those forms of inherent transgression that create the illusion of a free society where you're not completely locked into the conformism of society's rules. You're also able to act freely, even though, again, you're not really acting freely. You're doing what the society secretly wants you to do, so as to stay locked in. Because, I mean, there's the ideological trick, right? The ideology of this superego supplement to the law, or the inherent transgression, the reason why this built-in form of enjoyment is ideological is precisely because it conceals the fact that you're still not free, even though you're enjoying. Like that's the ideological obfuscation, is that at this unconscious level, we link freedom and emancipation to enjoyment precisely because jouissance is what is prohibited by the law. But the ideological jouissance at work here, which is inherent transgression, is, well, I have jouissance, I'm transgressing, therefore I must be free. But you're not free. That's the ideology of inherent transgression.
I just threw down a poll in the chat. I asked everybody, which gives you a harder time? Big other, superego. I think a lot of people.
I can tell you the right answer is superego. Well, I mean, here's the thing. You know what? That's shitty. I mean, on a general level, like the idea is that the big other basically leaves you alone if you just live basically in, you live a relatively decent life. Superego hounds the shit out of you. It doesn't leave you alone. It's the reason you feel guilty about shit. Like you don't really feel guilty. I mean, unless it's a really bizarre, exceptional situation. Like most of the time we feel bad because we're not living our best lives. Well, that translates into, I feel guilty because I'm not enjoying.
I would agree, except, and I think that that's probably more true for me now. But I would say that there was a significant portion of my life where this superego thing didn't really start to get to me. It didn't really start to bother me, right? Until later. And I think part of the reason is because it depends on how you're raised. Like if you had permissive parents, then the big other is pretty much like, okay, like don't get caught with paraphernalia on you, by the cops. But, you be responsible when you do drugs. You've got like this kind of messaging coming from your permissive, parents, or they turn a blind eye or whatever. But if you have the parents who like go into your room when you're not home and go through all your stuff and then try to find any little thing that could possibly go against their wishes, and then they blow it up into a really big deal, and then you're grounded all the time, or you're getting like beaten, or, and it's very, very like repressive. And that parent has their problems, but also they're acting as a mouthpiece for what they believe is the big other. And, in a lot of cases, people will say, well, they think they're trying to help you. They're trying to help you so that you'll be able to go into the world, and they think this is what's necessary. Well, okay, that's the big other, and that's a fucking bitch to be living under the roof.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that for me, I like anybody who kind of was like, you do you, and the super egoic kind of things, where I found that just to be totally freeing. And people who actually believe that, I was like, these are my people, and it wasn't until a lot later that I was like, oh damn, what a bill of goods I've been sold,
Well, and let's be honest, right? Okay, so here's the point. The idea is that the big other has typically been like the embodiment of traditional social authority throughout history, right? The superego, a lot of Lacanians will debate this. Like, was there superego in the Middle Ages, or is superego really this kind of supplemental authority that comes into being with capitalism, especially consumerism? Like, this idea to constantly enjoy, to constantly have fun, to constantly make the most of things, like that's a really consumeristic type of injunction. I mean, you can like enjoy the commodity, right? Be happy, right? All this kind of stuff. So there's a debate there, because obviously, like, I do not want to deny for a second how oppressive a strict big other can be. I mean, we see what religious institutions throughout history have done to gay people or whatever. Like the prohibition they have put on them obviously ruined their lives. Like I'm not denying that. The idea is, though, like living in the moment that we live, it seems like superego's gotten the upper hand over the big other. Like we live in a weird anomaly of a society precisely because there's this weird duty to enjoy ourselves, to have fun all the time, in a way like that was not the injunction of older societies.
Yeah. So this makes sense to me. Valerian's like, there is no quote unquote big other ? And I was
well, there's the whole nother thing on that.
Yeah, and that's kind of a can of worms. You just wrote like a book on the topic, a small book on the topic that
Well,
you
here's
sent, you
the
sent
thing
to
is,
me.
yeah, I mean, I did, but the point is, like, later in the lecture, we get to that whole thing.
Oh,
I've got to, yeah, so it's just like, yeah, but the point is, I already know, us, like, this whole lecture would take like 6 hours to do. So so here's the thing.
well, you've got about an hour, so.
And we're just going to talk about the, basically his theory of ideology. So I'll give you the, like, spoiler alert. So this lecture had different sections to it. So the first part is just the threefold structure of law, which we're on right now. The next part is ŽIŽEK's theory of ideology, which is why we're here. We need to get to it, which will take us a while. And then there's ŽIŽEK on the ideology of racism, scapegoating, and victimhood. That's a whole thing. Then there's the master and ideology, which is how the master, like, what role does the master play in ideology and politics? That's in a thing. Then there's Marx versus ŽIŽEK on ideology. Then there's Althusser versus ŽIŽEK on ideology. And then we come to subjective destitution, which is the last part. So I told you we're not going to get through all this at all. We're really going to have to do a follow-up stream.
In an attempt to bring in new people to the world of philosophy and theory while building on relationships already established, we are doing a countrywide tour of the United States this fall.
What's up, guys? It's Ann and
Are we coming
Dave.
to a city or town near you? Do you think there is a venue or audience in your local region that would be interested in a lecture or facilitated discussion about existentialism, critiques of therapism, PMC ideology, self-help, introduction to philosophy, or the time-energy critique of any of those things? This speaking and discussion facilitation tour will include the Pacific Northwest in mid-August, the Kansas City, Missouri area late August or early September, Philadelphia at the beginning of October, and really we're going to be all over the area there, hopefully, so get in contact with us if you think that we should come visit your state. Phoenix, Arizona, mid-October, in SoCal, especially San Diego, late October. I say especially San Diego because we already have our guide for the San Diego region. What's the difference between a host, a guide, and a volunteer, you ask? Well, thanks for asking, actually. The volunteer role is for people who want to put up posters or in other ways promote the events that will be occurring in their town or city, whereas the host might have a guest bedroom, guest house, or a place that we can park our van so that we can sleep in our van. We need to know if you would have like bathroom facilities or anything like that, and so the form on the website is where you can tell us what you have to offer. Guiding, on the other hand, though, people who love to guide take a lot of pride in their local knowledge. A good example of that would be Michael Downs when I visited him in Raytown, Missouri, and he took me into Kansas City and we had barbecue, and he took me to the mall and to all these other landmark places from his life growing up there. But a more recent example would be my friend Michael in Poland, who took us around Katowice, Poland, and basically gives a historical and sociological analysis of everything, and it was amazing. It was one of the coolest things we've ever experienced, and it made us realize some people just want to provide the space and privacy, whereas other people want to take you out and show you around. And so if you're interested in being a volunteer, host, or guide, we have a special form for that, so please fill out your information and get in contact with us as soon as possible so we can fit you into the schedule, because we'll love to meet you, touch base with the local community. And if you don't think anyone else in your area is interested in the things that you're interested in, if you don't think anyone else is into this stuff, well, we might be able to surprise you.
When I saw that poster, Baudrillard, in Boise, fucking Idaho? Are you kidding me? It was virtually an answer to an unspoken prayer, you know, it really was. And I just couldn't believe that somebody was interested in the things that I was interested in, that I had been interested in for years and had kind of given up on in futility. I'd labored in solitude for so long. I had no one to talk to about it, no one to bounce ideas off.
This tour is going to bring together a lot of people who want to be based in text with the people they're in conversation with. And yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic year. The only other thing that I want to say is that Michael Downs' first book is going to be published by Theory Underground really soon here. I've got another book coming out really soon here. These books will be spread throughout the United States on this tour. So I'm hoping to be able to do some actual book launch events at various bookstores. Outside of that, I guess the last thing that I would say is that Michael Downs is gearing up to teach For They Know Not What They Do by Slavoj Žižek. We're putting out all these introduction videos and other interviews related to the topic of Hegel, Lacan, Žižek, because we want to give people an accessible and sturdy basis in the discourse. The problem is that Michael Downs is very busy having to work at a wage slave job. And so if you want to help in freeing Mikey, make sure to go to his Patreon at patreon.com/thedangerousbaby and make a donation. Thank you. I would be remiss to close this out without a quick shout out to our patrons and our anonymous donors. Thank you so much for the donations. Already, we've only been around for a month. We already got over $3,000 in donations, and so thank you. And stay tuned for the app, which is on its way. There will be a Theory Underground app. So the current setup is that it is a social media site built around courses, where you can suppose that people who are involved in the discussions have a shared interest in the same or similar texts, and where you can assume in a lot of the discussions that, yeah, people have read the stuff that you're reading, that you're bringing into dialogue. And so, for instance, The Idea of the University by Carl Jaspers, dedicated for him. Slavoj Žižek's For They Know Not What They Do, dedicated for him. And then as people take the course over the years, new people will be coming into that forum. And so if you get in there early, you'll be able to see how the conversation evolves. And as new people add into the conversation, it'll bring back memories and like things that you want to work through, questions that you had with the first time that you read the text. And so I'm really excited for this. The reason I've built this website is because I think that this is what's lacking in so many other spaces, is that ability to return, to be able to communicate after the fact and in a sustained way on a platform that's not attention grabby and annoying like Discord. And so stay tuned, because there is an app on the way. Thank you to our donors. If you want to donate, go to theory-underground.com/support. Thank you.